Alrighty, you guys, it's Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. And so today we are going to be going over some plants that I think are beginner friendly. And I'm going to hope to get this video out on time, but we'll find out because earlier this week I was like really super sick, like could barely breathe and like walk around my house sick. So I am filming this a little bit later than I normally would, but I'm hoping to get this up in time for you guys. But without further ado, let's talk about some easy plants. So I'm only going to talk about 3 plants today that I think are really easy. And if you have been kind of perusing the plant community, you might already know that these plants are really easy beginner plants. But the number one top beginner plant that I would say, like if you kill pretty much everything and anything, you are almost guaranteed to not kill a snake plant. Now, I haven't done all of my research on every single type of snake plant, but normally snake plants are well known for being really hardy and not needing a lot of light. So, for example, they still do need light, but this plant that I have here, this is Shiloh, it lived in my office that had no windows, and it grew a lot more than I expected it to. It did get like 8 hours of probably continuous like overhead lighting, but it did still grow. I do have fertilizer in my soil. So normally these are medium to low light. However, they're not going to be mad at you if you put them in bright indirect light. And typically you really only need to water it like once a month. So usually how I water my plants is I will put them in a container, I'll fill up the water to about here-ish, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then I'm lazy and I pour whatever water is left through the plant. I haven't had any issues. This is now in my bedroom and it gets probably medium direct light, and it has grown even more than it was already growing and has so many more offshoots than when I originally brought it back from my office. So these are very drought tolerant plants. So if you forget to water your plants a lot, then this is probably going to be one of the best plants for you because they're really good at living without water. A lot of people say they like thrive on neglect, and snake plants are called Sansevieria plants as well. Now, if my dad can keep one of these next plants alive, I'm pretty sure anyone else can keep a plant alive. And so the next plant I'm going to be talking about are pothos in general. This one is a marble queen pothos. I do suggest that if you don't know if you have direct lighting or you don't get a lot of direct indoor light, that you get a purely green pothos. There are a lot of variegated pothos. My dad has a golden pothos which has the yellow variegation on it, and those need direct light in order to be able to keep their variegation. However, they still will live if they're not in direct light. You're going to lose that color. So if you don't want to risk losing your color, then just go with a straight green pothos. But these are also semi-drought tolerant. They like to still be kept wet. They don't like to dry out fully in between waterings. And I'm going to give you guys some tips on watering and how to tell what kind of light you have in your house a little bit later. But they are semi-drought tolerant, so if you don't water it right away, it's not going to be an issue, but you can't let it dry out as long as you can let a snake plant dry out, for instance. I've never had a problem with any of my pothos getting too dry. Usually I feel like if I lose any leaves, it's because it's too wet. So they usually prefer anywhere between medium to bright, indirect light. However, I do believe that they will still live in low light once it gets like adjusted. It's just you're not going to get a lot of growth, which can be said for any plant. If you keep it in low light, you're not going to get a lot of growth. And then lastly, the last kind of plant that I'm going to suggest for you guys today is a philodendron. So this is just a lemon lime heartleaf variety, and these are drought tolerant. So like for instance, he's pretty dry, or she's pretty dry. I have not been very great at watering my plants this month, but also, like I said, I was sick earlier in the week, which is really when all of these needed to be watered, was when I was sick. So these are a little bit drought tolerant, so if they do dry out, it's not going to be a big problem. Once again, you cannot let them completely dry out as long as you would be able to let a snake plant dry out. But I haven't had any issues with any kind of philodendron that I have, really. I've heard that if you get some of the velvet ones, those can be harder to take care of. And same thing with if you get a variegated philodendron, you're going to have to keep it in bright and direct light in order to be able to keep that variegation going. But I really haven't had a problem with any of my upright philodendron versus my climbing philodendron. Now, how can you tell what kind of light you have? So usually there's like a rule for like north, south, east, west facing windows. However, if you're anything like me, I don't know what direction anything is in unless I'm like actually looking at a map or a compass. And so the easiest way that I have been able to find out what kind of light I have is by looking at shadows. So for instance, if you are in direct light, you're not going to have a shadow. However, if you are in bright indirect light, your plant is going to have a crisp shadow. And if you are in medium indirect light, you are going to have a more diffused shadow. It's not going to be so sharp. And if you have low light, then you're probably just not going to see a shadow altogether, or everything is going to be shadowy. So that is the easiest way that I have found to be able to figure out what kind of lighting that I have. And if you really want to go all out, you can get a light meter, and that will tell you what kind of light you're getting in that space. However, if you're just getting into plants, and you probably don't want to spend money on a light meter. I don't want to spend money on a light meter, and I have lots of plants. However, if you stick a plant in light and it's not bright enough, you will be able to tell because the pot will take a really long time to dry out. You can be getting yellowing leaves. Your plant growth will kind of like get leggy, or you won't have like nodes so close together, or you'll get smaller leaves. And then my tips for telling how if your plant is dry or not, if you don't have them in a clear pot and can easily see it, is there are 3 methods. So the first method is a method I do, and that's just the finger method, where I just stick my finger into the soil and I just kind of see and feel if it's wet or not. Simple as can be. The other way you can do it is if you take a chopstick, because maybe you just don't trust your own hands, or you don't want to be sticking your fingers in all your plants and getting dirt underneath your nail like I do all the time. You can take a chopstick and you can stick your chopstick into the soil and pull that out. And then wherever there was moisture on the chopstick will be like a demarcation line for where it's wet. And then the third way that people sometimes use is using a water meter measurer, and then I'll tell you how dry or wet your soil is. All of these methods have their pros and cons though, so figure out which one is best for you and what you think will be working with you consistently. But these plants will also tell you if they're too dry. I mean, I've never had my snake plant get too dry, I don't think, or at least show signs of it being too dry. However, with like a lot of my philodendron or my pothos, like the leaves will dramatically droop. Like these leaves would be like down here. So like they will just dramatically droop if they are to the point where like they absolutely are gonna die if you don't give them water. A lot of my other plants do that as well. Succulents are a little bit different, and succulent type plants. That's why I haven't put any of those on here. But these are the top 3 plants that I think are the easiest to take care of from my own experience, from what I've seen online, and from the fact that my dad does own one of these kinds of plants and he's not a plant person. So with that being said though, in terms of lighting, Do not put your plants in direct light for extended periods of time. The leaves will burn and they will get crispy and you will be very, very sad about it. So that is all I have for you guys today. I'm starting to cough really, really bad because I'm talking so much. So I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Bye.